Hello, everybody, and welcome to Anyhow Anyway by Summer England. I'm your podcast host, Summer England, and we talk about all things bookish, cozy, chaotic, smutty, and just everything in between. Oh, and writing, of course. We talk a lot about writing. And today is the season finale of season 1 of the Anyhow Anyway podcast. I'm so excited. I believe I was supposed to post last week, but it was Christmas Day, and I was also finishing up a 15-show run at the theater I work at, and that wasn't going to happen. Also, who's going to be listening to my voice on Christmas Day? Who is going to be doing that? Thursdays are a huge holiday time this year. Obviously, Thanksgiving's always on a Thursday, but Christmas was on a Thursday, and then New Year's is also on a Thursday, and this podcast comes out on a Thursday. So I bring the holidays, if you will. This final episode is going to be a celebration of 2025 in part. Also, I have more of your Q&A that I'm going to answer as well, along with the news that doesn't matter. And so let's just get into it. Okay, 2025 was a really good, really hard year. This was my sprout year. So every year, I name after a pressed flower that falls out of my journal. So, okay, quick backstory. I have this journal that I was gifted from my grandfather, and it is from the Shakespeare Theatre Festival up in Canada and the Stratford Shakespeare Festival, and it is from my 1996, my birth year, and he found it in a secondhand shop in Arkansas, I believe, and he gifted it to me, and it's my favorite type of pages because they're just blank, and they are they're brown and instead of white, so they're unbleached, and they have Shakespeare quotes on them. And obviously, if you know me, you know that I'm a big Shakespeare nerd. I have 2 master's degrees in Shakespeare performance, and I'm a professional Shakespearean actress. That's literally how I make my living. I've taught Shakespeare. And so ever since I received that book, what I do is every spring, and usually at the top of every season, I go out and I pluck flowers and I press them into this notebook. And at the end of every year, whatever flower I flip to or falls out, that is the name of the incoming year. So, I've had my lupine year, and last year, one of the first blooms of spring fell out, and it was just a sprout. I'm not even sure what the flower was. It was still very new, and now it's sealed with wax, but that was my sprout year. And just like a sprout, it was beautiful and hard because living is hard and you're figuring out a lot of stuff as a sprout. And I mean, to be completely candid, because my life is that way, I began the year doing the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life, other than my divorce, which was not as much emotionally upsetting as it was just logistically, a nightmare. I broke up with the neighbor. The neighbor and I broke up, and that is a long story that was chronicled on TikTok, and it was a story that I retold a year later after the events of everything happened, as if it were happening in real time. And telling that story changed my life in every way possible, because it is how I got my literary agent. It's how I became known for storytelling, and it's indicative in my writing as well, the way in which I sort of viscerally and with urgency, and I guess a lot of quirky grammatical navigations go for storytelling. And I ended that relationship at the beginning of the year. And the thing was, and the most heartbreaking thing was, that nothing was bad. It was just that we were sort of at a crossroads in our life and had things that we needed to do, and doing them together didn't really seem like an option at the time. And that was really hard. And I'm someone who prefers to be alone anyways. And so after that, I was like, you know what, never mind. And then immediately a new adventure started. I was like in a season with somebody, and I was like, okay, we're going to see what's here. And it was long distance, and it was fun until it wasn't. And I ended that as well. So, that has been good and hard. But I think in a lot of respects, the details will come when details will come, but I think in a lot of respects, some people are lighthouses and other people are just bits of scenery that you see along the way. even if it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm going to dock here forever. I guess we're becoming very seafaring suddenly. And, I think that I I am but a boat, and there are perhaps coming home to a lighthouse is something that I'm actively doing at the end of the year. And so there is much upheaval, and strangely, even though I thought everything was going to change and be fundamentally different, everything has. But also, I think some people are lighthouses and some people are bits of scenery. So I will leave you with that a little bit. And then, oh my gosh, I this year my debut novel was announced. I bought a house, which I have lovingly nicknamed the Whimsy House. And it's a farmhouse from 1940 that the Statler brothers, or one of them, used to live in, for those of you who like country folk music. And, this year has been life-changing in every way possible. But it's so funny that, you have these huge events that happen to you, but the next day you still get up and you make the same breakfast that you do. And I have perfected my oats, and I really love that. I started this podcast this year, and I've stuck with it, and I find it so fun, and I'm excited to grow it, and I'm excited to get it sponsored. Manifesting. Quince, come at me, please. Please. I wrote a ton this year. I edited my first debut novel, which was its own upheaval of a process. I traveled the world. I got to tell more stories on stage, and I'm going to tell more stories on stage next year. And all of that living, all of that loving, failing, laughing, at the end of it, it's sort of like the more you see, the less you know. The more I travel the world, the smaller I feel, in a really good way. And the older I get, every year I get to turn around the sun, I'm like, wow, I know so little. And the more I learn, the more I know that I will know so little. And there's sort of like a grief in not being able to experience every single thing the world has to offer, but there's also this supreme comfort of, no matter, I always have the choice to keep on adventuring. I am able-bodied, I have my health, I have my mind, I am as semi-fiscally stable as I can be as an author and an actor. And until any of that changes, or I stop making those decisions, adventure and beauty and learning and stories await around every corner, every day, every single day. And I think that while this year was poignantly painful in ways that I could have never expected, and really brought things to my attention I didn't even know that I was carrying with me until they were presented to me, at the end of it all, I'm so just, it is almost painful, but in a good way, a painful awareness of how beautiful, heart-wrenching, everything's true all at once this life is, and the amazing, cool privilege it is to wake up and think, I can change my life today if I really wanted to, even if it's slow, even if it's just, oh, I'm going to sign up for a master's program today, or actually I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write this story, and it's going to take a long time, but I was the catalyst of my own change. And I think that people are doing accomplishment cakes and stuff for 2025. And I love that. I think everybody should be proud of themselves. And I hate when people are like, I didn't do anything of note. You did. You lived. You are here at the end of this year. That is an amazing feat. You did something cool. Whether it was I didn't get that thing at the store that I really wanted and another version of me would have, or it's the opposite of I did get that thing at the store and another version of me would have said, no, you don't get to get that thing. We have small wins, small miracles, small bits of magic every single day. And I think one of my biggest accomplishments this year is being keenly aware of that, of the absolute prism of a life. And every single person is living it the same. Every person can just change their lives like that a little bit. I mean, obviously there are things in place, and I'm coming at this from like a whimsical, whatever, and perhaps it's sounding out of touch because there are some circumstances that you can't change. So on the whole, generalization. there is an element for many of us wherein, and I don't take that for granted. I do not take that for granted. Of I can get up tomorrow and I can think to myself, you know what? I am going to pursue that doctorate in folklore. I am. I'm going to go to Birmingham University and I'm going to study Shakespeare in Stratford upon Avon. And then they're going to like me so much and they're going to think it's so funny that a girl's name, her real name is Summer England, that they're going to say, why don't you become a resident actor writer here? And you'll be a local personality hire. You'll be our local eclectic, like you are in your town in Virginia, wherein I have become local folklore simply for my chaotic love life and that I'm always haunting the cemetery and that I'm always doing everything all the time and no one understands how I do it. I have become that, and that's great. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my 2025 was really wild. And I cried hard, but I laughed harder. And I think that is the important thing. And I'm sitting in my office now, which I'm about to redo. 2026 is the year where I'm really going hard. It's not just like painting the whimsy house. It's I want to remodel the kitchen. I want to restore what I can because the floors have this really horrible gray vinyl plank modern stuff. And I was looking at old pictures of the house that I had to scour the internet to find. And there is, I think, original wood flooring under here. It would have to be redone and it would definitely be scuffed, but I would rather have scuffed original wood floor than just the gray millennial horribleness that's on top of it right now. Anyway, 2025 was awesome. And so much of it was awesome because of you all and, supporting me and wanting to listen to my stories and then also wanting to read them in different forms. And 2026 is a year that The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne, my baby, my debut novel, is going out into the world. And my life will never be the same after that, even though I will still be the same. My biggest hope is that I am the type of person that, the day after the award show, the proverbial award show, is filled with things that make me happy because my life wasn't gearing up to go to the award show. My life is built around other things that just happens to be a cool thing that happened. So that was 2025. And I'm really excited for 2026. Going into 2025, I had the feeling that it was going to be an upheaval of a year in a way that is about purging and clearing and renewing and excising that which is not meant for you and then seeing what trickles back. And it has. I mean, it really, that was that year. And 2026, it feels like a precipice in a good way. And I promised you all in the last episode that I would tell you what I do for New Year's. So I don't do the 12 grapes under the table. I don't run around my neighborhood with an empty suitcase. And part of that is because I don't like flying in planes. So the idea of travel freaks me out. I don't put money in my shoe. What I do, like I said at the beginning, is I have a little notebook that I've had for a while. And in that notebook, I write the year, and then I just write my manifestations, little bits and bobs, the big things like health and the little things like, I'm not going to share everything because I think those are sacred bits, but there is one thing I will share, which is I really want to ride quickly on a horse this year. I want to be on horseback and do that. And so I write all of this down, and then I have a little beeswax gnome from a beeswax gnome candle from the farmer's market, along with the first bloom from my little Shakespeare notebook that I have pressed, or whatever bloom falls out. And so I write all of that down, and I listen to Howard Shore while I do it, because I really think the type of environment that you're in when you are considering what you want for yourself is important. So I always, of course, at the end of my days, I want my life to be like the Shire. That's not a surprise to anybody. I want that kind, slow, beautiful, simple life wherein it's about community and it's about giving back to the earth and having that intimate connection with the patterns of life in the way that Hobbiton is. Also, it's low stimulus. I am convinced that autistic people are obsessed with Hobbiton because it is a low stimulus life. You have very few clothes. You have meals based on whatever is in the seasonal rotation, and your options for being alive are like family inheritance or you're a farmer. Like it's you do not have the demands that society places on people today. You don't have the stimulus. You don't have any of that. It's small places, which is another thing. Like it's perpetual cocoons. So Hobbiton is a weighted blanket. Anyway, I honestly forgot where was going for that. Oh, I turn on Howard Shore and I turn on my favorite music from the Howard Shore album. Duh. Bag End, The Shire, Rosie Cotton, you know what I mean? Flaming Red Hair, rather, is the canonical name of it. The scientific name, if you will. I turn that on and I write those manifestations down and I do it with my little candle and I seal it with my plant. And I think that is something that is important to me because it makes the most sense for me. I totally understand the people who eat the 12 grapes under the table and whatever. It just doesn't resonate with me at all. It's not a practice that makes sense to me, and something that I've always wanted to be aware of whenever I'm doing anything of the sort. Of what I really want and I'm hoping for myself is that I am in tune with what feels right and feels like an honest, genuine communication between me and the energy that I'm putting forth. And so that is my practice. And I really, really don't like when people say, here's what to do during this moon and here's what not to do during this moon, or here's what to do during New Year's and here's not what to do during New Year's. Because I think you're putting rules around something that it's really about intention and how to communicate and figuring out how you best communicate with whatever you believe, whether it's God or universe or spirit, or you have a goddess, or it is nature, or in my case, I don't know necessarily, other than I'm so deeply grateful for the passage of time and the earth itself. And I believe it is, what an honor to be on this planet. And so that's sort of the vibe, I go towards. I don't have a patron saint or goddess or anything like that. And I don't know if I ever will. I like learning that people do it, but to me, I think it's just about channeling what feels what makes the most sense to you. I think the only thing that I really am not for is hexing, unless it is deeply necessary circumstances, only because I do believe karmic retribution is something that we may not see but will happen. It just, in weird ways, you know what I mean? Like my ex-husband has gout, so that sort of situation. So that's what I do for my New Year's. And I have a paper planner as well, and I will, at the beginning of every year, I flip to the back of the planner and I always ask my future self a question. And I go back at the end of the year and I answer that question for myself, because whether you believe in timelines or not, I think taking care of your former versions of yourself is special to be able to memorialize them. So that's my woo-woo. That's my witchy girl summer. That's my practice. That is how I like to usher in the new year. And, every year is a little bit different. Like tonight, if I make it to midnight, I might keep the door open to let the new opportunities in and let the new air in. And I probably won't do a big deep clean tomorrow. I'll just let the new energies rest. And then January 2nd will be business as usual. But that's me. That's my woo-woo. You do you and your woo-woo. You know what I'm saying? If you're like, no, I'm going to scrub my house tomorrow with lemon because we want to bring in XYZ. Okay, queen, if that's how you feel like you should do it, then that's what you need to do. You need to be listening. So now we're going to transition a little bit into looking into 2026. 2026, I'm very excited about. I think I always get really as well anxious because honestly, I'm a parent. And so my intrusive thoughts undercut a lot of things of like, oh my God, is this the year that something bad happens? So no, it's not. It's not. It never will be. Everything will totally be okay. This is just the reality of an anxious parent, though. You know what I mean? Other than my undue worries, 2026, my novel is coming out, which is amazing. I just finished my romance novel about two Shakespeare professors vying for the same tenure track position yesterday. And oh my gosh, I'm in love with it. So I'm going to submit that to my agent. I really wanted to get it to Emily. Emily, why won't you come on over, Emily? Emily. That's her name. So anyways, really wanted to get it to her on Christmas Eve. That was the goal that I set for myself. But in the middle of a 15-show run, and then my kid was home with me, there wasn't a way I was going to do that. I also don't want to rush the edit. So, but I still did what my goal was, and I finished another book, full length in 2025. And so I'm going to edit these next few days and submit that to her, which I'm very excited about. I want to go on submission with that. And I want that to get bought. I really want, it will happen. My romance novel about the two Shakespeare professors is going to start what I want the next revolution to be in books, which is Shakespeare. And I believe I am uniquely qualified to be the helm of that, because I think you want somebody who doesn't just love the plays, but knows them linguistically to be adapting them or to be writing about them. Just like I really love Ali Hazelwood. I want to be Summer England is to Shakespearean romances as Ali Hazelwood is to STEM and women in STEM rom-coms. That's what I want to be. And then I want to be the Emily Henry of cozy fantasy romances, sapphic romances to be particular. Because I think the thing that's indicative about Emily Henry's romances are that her female main characters always have a deep personal arc that they are going to go through the book, that even if you took the romance out, I would still read it for that arc. And that's what I'm hoping to do with my cozy romanticises, is that our main character Clara Thorne is deeply flawed and just a silly goose because she cannot see what is right in front of her. And she goes through this huge upheaval journey about letting herself, she has some things to figure out. She's got a lot of walls around her heart. And I like having characters that are deeply flawed and a little bit bratty or unlikable in some parts because they are human and messy. And it's why I like Emily Henry's main characters as well, is because it feels like very fully realized characters who are making decisions based on survival instincts that may or may not be needed anymore. So I want to do that. You know what I mean? And Ali Hazelwood's STEM romances are so good because she is in STEM. She's head first. I mean, I don't understand half the science stuff. And in the Shakespearean novel I have right now, we're talking about iambic pentameter. We're talking about these rhetorical devices, and I'm not over-explaining them because it is an academia novel. We're talking about constructing syllabi and the political underbelly of this fictional Ivy League institution, as much as we're talking about these two contracted rivals who, they're both, what do you do when you put two huge nerds in a room together? And one is an ex-Nepo baby model, and the other one is autistic, and she just wants to teach Shakespeare, damn it. What's going to happen when they get in the room together? You know what I mean? So finish that, want to get that sold. And here's my manifestation, is that it gets sold, but I'm going to write more of them. So they buy 3 of them, because I already have another one in the pipeline. And this one is 2 actors. It's a second chance romance. And it's a meta spoof of Much Ado About Nothing, because she finally lands Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing, but she is cast opposite her ex. And it's if you know anything about the play Much Ado About Nothing, it is heavily insinuated that Beatrice and Benedict have been entangled in some capacity before. She says, I know you of old, and they have a witty repartee and definitely talk of one another as if they, whether it is romantic or not, they have harbored something for each other for years and years and years. And so that, I'm also working on that. I just have so many down the line, and I'm really excited. So that's going to get bought, and it's going to be great. And with the money from that, I will remodel my kitchen and have flooring put in this house so it looks less like millennial gray, and that'll be great. And then I'm going to Ireland not once but twice. Actually, you can come to that. I'm going in August with Trover Trip and also in October to Ireland. And on the August trip, we're doing a book lover's guide to Dublin where we're going to a bunch of bookshops. And then in October, we're doing a knit lover's guide to Dublin where we're going to a bunch of yarn shops together. And we're going to talk about writing routines, all of that stuff. So 2026 has travel already, adventure. The cat's out of the bag, so I'm allowed to say this. I'm going to be Viola in 12th Night, which is kind of a huge deal for me personally because it was sort of a character like, oh my God, I would love to play that character, but I just didn't think that I would. And that contract came down the line. So I will be Viola in 12th Night. And I already have a 12th Night retelling sort of percolating in my mind about queer baristas, because we need some contemporary queer romance. This Danny Jean and Henry H. Sutton, which are my two Shakespeare professors in my currently completed untitled work. Danny, it's implied that she's bi, but like it's not a queer novel. It is, it's a boy and a girl falling in love. However, I have my queer romantasy, and I will be having a queer contemporary romance, especially with the 12th Night retelling that I still have to percolate on some more. So we've got all of that down the line, and I just am excited. So much adventure and magic is awaiting in 2026. I can feel it. I know it. It's happening. And I'm starting the year off a lot where I started last year off, in ways that I never thought would be the same because of things, and ways that I always thought would be. So, take with that what you will. Travel the world in 2025. I'm going to travel the world some more in 2026. I'll go on book tour. I'll meet you all. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. I'm going to get inspiration for more stories. Who knows? Okay. So now we must transition to some of your questions that you asked several weeks ago. Okay. I would be appreciated if you could talk about the magic behind the love of writing. The magic behind the love of writing. This is hard because, the question I get asked, and I've talked about it on here, is how do you write so much? What is your writing routine like? One, I'm a chronic overwriter. I linger so heavily in areas that I don't need to linger on, and then leave bare other things that I should linger on. Anyhow, I love to do it. I really, really love to write. And I think it's also the key to my writing routine is because writing is a meditation. Writing, sometimes it's overstimulating, and sometimes I'm spending so much time with these characters that feel very real that my social battery will be zapped because I'm building these people and getting to know them from such an intimate, visceral point, because I don't know how else not to. And I think part of that is being a neurodivergent author, is that I understand the human psyche sort of from the back door rather than what's presented on the surface. And that can be hard. And it is such an intimate, messy, beautiful, yet regimented process. And I mean, my love of it is that if there was one thing I am certain I was put on earth to do, it is to tell stories and to inhabit that ancient tradition of storytelling, and writing is an expression of that. Acting is an expression of that. And so, that's the magic behind it is, oh my gosh, I can just sit down and make up a world and make up people and make up scenarios. And all my entire life is looking at the world in a way that other people don't because of how my brain works and how I am as an autistic woman and masking and all of this stuff. And stories sort of release that pressure valve of little bits and pieces of scenes that I've collected all of my life, because human beings are endlessly fascinating in what they choose to express and when. And, I have all these moments that I have pent up in my brain. And so writing allows me to channel that into something else, and it is alchemy and magic. And if you feel called to do it even half as much as I have, I think a writing routine will naturally fall into its place because there will be a need for you to do it, like eating, like breathing, like sleeping. Are there knit projects you're excited about, or just letting the spirit carry you? Actually, yes, I have some knit projects planned in 2026. I want to knit a scarf. Uh, Hang on, how do I explain this? I think I called it Knit Through My TBR. So every book I complete for the year, I want to knit a swatch that is the color palette of the book itself into a scarf. So by the end of the year, I have a book scarf, and then I want to try to auction that scarf and make a donation to like the Little Free Library, or to, I need to continue some research for charities and such, but probably something in regards to early literacy for kiddos and such. So I'm very, very excited about that, to sort of do that project and have like a project for a cause, but also I think it would be really fun to knit through your TBR. I think that sounds so fun. Recommendations to make a female suit look cute and not like I'm a guy. I'm begging. I don't know how to help you. As a queer woman, when I see a woman in a suit, even if it's baggy, the last thing I'm thinking is they look like a guy. There might be sort of a different energy, like a not overt femme energy. All I'm thinking about is, that's hot. That is hot. That's hot. Good on them. So I don't know. I might not be the person to ask, because I don't view people through their gender, and often through how they express themselves from the outside. I'm just like, cool shape on them. Good on them. So that's on that. But I would say pick a fun color and then pick a fun cut. And then if you're worried about looking and not like I'm a guy, which is in part of it, I would say some of that has to do with the neckline. So if you're buttoned up all the way to the top, if you have a shirt underneath this suit, you might want to consider not doing that. Or so whenever I wear suits, I don't wear a shirt, or I wear a mesh top, but usually I wear a big suit jacket with sort of like a lacy bra, and I just allow it to have a plunging neckline. So that's how I do it. But I sort of like when I'm in a suit and I feel more mask. I really like that. I believe the kids call it gender euphoria. I have experienced that in a baggy suit that makes me feel, not like a little fairy, but a little mask fairy. I like that. Oh, I love this next question. If Clara Thorne owned a coffee shop, what would her specialty drink be? Shop vibes? Oh, I love this question. Thank you. Thank you for this question. So, Clara Thorne, for those of you who don't know, is the protagonist of my sapphic debut cozy romantasy, The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne. So immediately, this shop is like an old, sort of refurbished, I don't know, grain shop or antique shop. It has a lot of windows. It's very cozy. It's all wood everywhere, like a dark stained wood. There's a big, big old coffee counter and cozy chairs, lots of bookshelves, and tons of plants, because she's a chaotic gardener, but none of them are house plants. They are all garden plants. We've got some vining English peas. She has magicked carrots are growing like the air plants that don't need water above you. And when you walk in, you think like, oh my goodness, look at this like really cool art installation. It is just carrots. It's just carrots above you. And there's like rutabagas and just things are growing everywhere. There's an oversized pumpkin that she has magicked and has just let become like the bean bag of the coffee shop. And that's on that. I would say her specialty drink is actually a nestleberry latte, which is featured in the book. And nestleberries are a berry specific to Nestoria, the realm that she lives in. And they are sort of a mix between a blackberry and a raspberry, but also blue raspberry flavoring. So it's a really rich, bright flavor, and that's gonna be the nestleberry latte will be her sort of specialty. You know what I mean? And that obviously is going to be made with oat milk and iced because she is a lesbian. Well, she's bisexual. Hesper, her lover, is a lesbian. That's neither here nor there. That would be the vibe. Somebody asks where they should publish their poetry. I have no idea. I literally have no idea. Start on your social media. If you have social media, you can always post on there. Insofar as publications, I do not know. I don't know. I'm sorry. Did you ever have doubts as to whether you were fully straight when you were like in college? Absolutely, I did. I started having doubts that I was fully straight when I was 12, which was very difficult because I was in a high control religion that told me, hey, if you think these thoughts about the same sex as you, you are burning in hell. You are a gay person. Pray the gay away. And I remember I had a huge crush on the teenage Who lady from the live action Grinch. It's like the opening scene when the teenagers are going up to do something nefarious on the mountain. And I had such a huge crush on that Who lady. And I mean, it was crippling guilt though. Like it's a classic. Did I have doubts in college? Yeah, I mean, from an early age, honestly, it goes back later than that because before I was 10, all I wanted to be, I did not identify with being a girl at all. I had huge body dysmorphia when my body started changing. I would put like 3 bras on. I would get oversized clothes. I would cry if I was put into a dress or something feminine, even remotely feminine. I was very anti my femininity. If the they, them movement situation happened when I was a kid, oof, I would have been desperate. I wouldn't have been allowed to. If I had even pitched that a little bit, I don't know, my home life would become more unsafe than it was, but I would have been all over that, that's for sure. And all I wanted to be was a boy, and I really felt differently towards girls than I did with guys. And I think part of that is natural of kids like figuring out, connection and intimacy apart from other feelings. But, right around 11 or 12, I definitely I would think to myself, I had a really good friend who was a girl at the time, and we got along so well and would dream and play together. And she was also kind of a tomboy. And I would think to myself, like, oh, if it was allowed and we wouldn't burn in literal hell, I wish she were a boy. You know what I mean? Sort of that like Christian in of like, oh man, if this person were a boy, I would totally be with them. So yeah, and in college, I would say around high school, I became much more comfortable with my femininity and the every way it can be expressed and sort of the freedom of a human body. And, I think in a lot of respects, I got lucky because of my neurodivergence. I understood gender as a concept and that we have a binary in this society. I also didn't care about it at all and I didn't care. I didn't have a perceived societal pressure upon me. I was like, okay, yeah, I know that those are expectations there. I don't care about them though. I'll express myself how I want to express myself. I will wear, a frilly pink dress and I will feel lovely and light and like I'm going to sing Popular. And then the next day I'm going to wear, an oversized button up with the sleeves rolled up and baggy jeans and nothing's going to fit and my Converse, and I will feel like I could have a really successful run in New York City making my own lamps and my girlfriend's name is Selena and everything's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel. What helps you to write so freely? How do you work past self-doubt? I don't have time for self-doubt. I let it wash over me like raindrops. I'm not going to be an imposter syndrome girl. I'm not going to have self-doubt. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, should I do that? Yeah, you should. Who else is going to do it? Stop farting around. You have too much life to live. Life is too remarkable. Stop. You have the world is against you. There are people that want you to fail. And there are people who really want you to succeed. There are people who don't know you exist. So just do it. Nobody else is going to do it. You should do it. Okay? What is my go-to creamer? Oatly oat milk. Oatly full fat oat milk baby. That's my go-to creamer. I'm lactose intolerant. I can't have anything else. Are you going to do a book tour? You totally should. I believe so. I am with, I believe so. I believe I will be having events. Now, I am fully booked from now until the end of August as in a professional actor run. Catch me as Viola, and then catch me as, I can't announce that yet, but it's also a huge deal later in the summer. Okay. So somebody else asks, what's your attitude towards screens with your kiddo? Obviously, you use tech all the time for your jobs, but what about him? Do you guys watch TV together? Game? So, I mean, screen time, I treat screen time a lot like I do desserts or sweets of like, you should never add morality to this. If you do it too much, though, you're probably not going to feel great. So I let my kid have a sweet treat after every meal. We just, like if he's had one after every meal and it's really big, or there wasn't like a great balance with, if he wants a sweet treat after breakfast, I'm like, well, is that much sugar in the morning going to be helpful? Because, maybe we do like a banana and then later in the day, so I try to have those open lines of communication. And it's the same way with screen time. So he is allowed to have screen time, not a lot. I would say max is 40-ish minutes a day. And that is on average, I would say, because there are some days he doesn't watch it at all. And then there are some days he is also a little bit neurodivergent. And by a little bit, he is. And so sometimes he eats better if he gets to just watch a few episodes of Bluey at dinner and just completely like zone out for a little bit. And I let him do that. Like I don't need him to perform familial connection for me. We connect in other ways and we can have family dinners and stuff, but I don't like eating with people, and it's fine that he doesn't either. I love watching my little shows while I eat. It's fine that he does too. And so really, it's not a lot of screen time. I really try to encourage him to like read a book, do some art, play with your toys. And sometimes he'll fight me at first of like, I don't know how to, I don't know if I want to, but he just has to get over it and he's fine. He's totally fine. We don't watch a lot of TV together because I don't watch TV. And then I don't game with him literally at all. We are not gamers in this house whatsoever. I don't find it enjoyable. And, if he gets older and he is like, I would like a game system, I'm not going to say no. Like, that's fine. I want him to have exposure to these things so that he knows how to intuitively treat them, because I grew up in such a like excess or extreme scarcity household that I had control issues with literally every single substance that came into my life, from food to TV to whatever. Like I either had none of it or I had all of it, and I don't ever want that with him. So it's like, yeah, screen time and dessert and any type of sweets or any type of fun extra thing he has access to all of the time. We just have conversations and I monitor it of like, okay, buddy, especially when he's home from school or he's sick. Well, when he's sick, he can watch, he knows he can watch all of the screen time. If he has a snow day now that he's older and he's at school all day, baby, what do you want to do? Do you want to sit down and watch TV? Because you are allowed to veg out. You are allowed to understand the pleasure of a snow day. 100%. Come on. Absolutely. Absolutely. So no, I don't stick him in front of a screen when I have to work. I do not. And sometimes that makes things really difficult. And then other times it doesn't. And that's fine. It's all just a conversation. He's learning. I'm learning. I don't know if that helps. What is my turkey leg recipe? I braise that puppy. Okay. I put 4 cups of olive oil with sage, rosemary, brown sugar, smoked paprika, salt, pepper, obviously, and a little bit of lemon to lighten it up. And I braise those puppy for hours and they are fall off the bone. It is so good. I also, I dry brine them in salt and pepper for a little, usually like 36 hours before I braise them. So they're very yummy. Would love to know how you survived the baby stage of your kiddo. Please, I'm in the thick of it right now. Okay, so here's my tea about parenthood. I did not enjoy the baby stage. I really enjoyed, obviously I loved him, but he wasn't grown yet. He wasn't himself yet. We couldn't have a relationship. I didn't know what he liked. He just needed me for survival. And I found no joy in that. I don't understand people who glorify the age of their kids of like, oh my gosh, if I could just have them, 3 years old forever, I would. I literally would never. I think it is I'm a just you wait girl, but in the way opposite way that people usually are. I'm just you wait in the sense of it gets so much better because the kid knows how to regulate and also communicate their needs, and I understand them as a human. Babies are extremely overstimulating to me, and my kid was fussy. He was fussy all the time. He wasn't colicky. He was just fussy and whiny, kind of until now ish. I mean, he wasn't all the time, and he's always been very funny, adventurous, and bright, but he's also just really smart and overstimulated easy. And I get really overstimulated by whining, especially with older kids, because I'm like, you know better. You're whining right now just to whine. There's nothing, I can't hug you to make this better. This is just annoying. Go somewhere else. so, so it is hard. And I would say, get yourself noise canceling headphones and really get into audiobooks and just walk that baby around. You know what I mean? Like, do what you can. I went on a ton of walks with my kid. I used to be, I mean, this is neither here nor there. I used to be a certain weight and that was comfortable with my body. And then I had a kid and then I found out about food allergies, but I mean, walking calmed us both down. It made our lives so much more worth living. And ever since then, I've been a different weight because walking became, I mean, miles and miles and miles a day. I mean, when he was, it didn't matter what the weather was outside. If it was not actively thunderstorming, we were outside, sometimes walking like 13 miles a day. I would pop in an audiobook and I would just go. I would listen through entire series over and over and over again. And, you do what you can to survive, and it does get a lot better. I'm going to sip my tea really quickly. That's a good cuppa. Ooh, I'm going to sip it again. Hopefully you didn't hear me sip it, but that is really delicious. Okay. If you could only perform one of the roles from this past year for the rest of your life, which, I mean, probably Joe March, because I can just write while I'm doing that performance. It is exhausting though. I was on stage the whole time. I talked all the time, and have to watch my sister die and fall in love, and that was the whole thing. Am I a plotter or a pantser? I'm a pantser. I really am. I'm a pantser. I do the 5-sentence method by Rebecca Thorne, which is a book I recommend highly, which is kind of merging these two where you're a plotter and a pantser, and it just kind of gives you guideposts of, okay, around this mark, this thing should happen. I don't even do the sentence thing though. I'm just like, okay, at 20,000 words, we need to be changing something up somewhere, which has helped me a lot because I'm a lingerer. Why do these AMA have a word limit? I can't get in everything I need to ask. Oh, ask me anything. I understand. I'm sorry if you needed to ask more. My favorite comfort movies, Sense and Sensibility, Ratatouille, When Harry Met Sally. Okay. How can we be friends? I don't know. Friendship, the process of friendship eludes me, as in, when does one become friends? Do you know what I mean? Is it like now we're best friends because I leave the door open when I pee when you're over? Is that how I know? Can we start a local book club? Girl, I have so many book clubs. I have my Fable book club. I have my Alstora book club. I have my writing club. I don't know if I have it in me. I'd have to get, I would need to hire a manager to whisk me to meetings. And I don't want to do that. Oh, somebody said and end up not depressed, but I don't know what their original question was. Oh, how do I help my boyfriend to feel at home at all, ever, including when he's at home, so he can recharge and not end up depressed? I don't know. I have no idea how to help you with that. How do I help my boyfriend to feel at home at all, ever, including when he is at home, so he can recharge and not end depressed? I mean, if he's literally an adult male, he should be figuring out coping mechanisms. And let's assume the best. Let's assume that he has. Let's assume that he has figured out, hey, partner, I don't your name on here is not a name. So anyways, if he's like, hey, partner, I know the things that help me recharge are XYZ, of like, I sit down and read and the lights are low and music, lo-fi is playing, but it's not been helping me lately, then I would say, maybe it's time to discover some new coping mechanisms of like, do we need to cook a meal together? Do you need to decompress for the day for a little bit right when you get home to sort of let it out? Like, is there an identifiable issue that is sort of causing your partner to not feel at home? Is it something external outside of the home? Is it something internal? Are there lights that are issues? Is there like has he moved into the house but he didn't pick out any of the furniture? I think that I need a little bit more detail, because right now how it's reading is just like he hasn't done anything for himself and it's up to you, which I'm hoping is not the situation because we're adults. But seeing that if he has, I would say, is work an issue? And if it's an issue, is it so big that you need to start making steps to change that? Or is it something that with a certain type of like post-work routine that could help, to see if there's something in there? Do you need to take a bath? Do you need to light some candles? Is there little bits and bobs in the home that you can do so that you are not the one carrying all the emotional burden, but you can sort of set up a space wherein people are able to sit with their emotions safely? Because I don't think it's about fixing partners' problems as much as it is like, we share the space together and I will make sure that it feels safe for you to figure out your own journey, and I'll support you where I can, Okay, so this is kind of a long episode, honestly, but it's also the season finale. And by season finale, I mean, we will be back shortly. I plan to be back, I think, at the end of January or the very beginning of February. I want to batch some episodes and things. However, I'm going to take some time. Or who knows, maybe I only take a 2-week break and I'm back. There's just so much. I don't know. But a big podcasting news is that I have a little extra room off the side of my office that they called it the carriage room or the cradle room. And it's where people used to store their trunks when they came in, like literally on a horse and carriage. And then, or it's like a little where the cradle would be for a baby. And it's really cute. And my sister's fiance is a woodworker. So I'm going to paint that room. I am not going to wallpaper it because I can't wallpaper. So I'll probably paint. If I want to do any type of print, I'll just paint the print. And then I'm going to do some stick-on tiles in there. Basically, I'm making myself a podcasting studio so that I'm able to film these. And I'll be knitting my TBR scarf while I'm filming these episodes so that you ADHD people who like to body double, there will be a video component to this as well with some knitting. So you'll have a little bit of knitting ASMR. Not a lot. It's just like the slight clacking of needles. So that is very exciting. And that's what this break in between the seasons is sort of affording me, is some time to be able to dedicate to that and also hop onto my next novel. So in the news that doesn't matter, okay, what I'm reading, writing, and listening to, I am reading Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson, which is extremely highly recommended. It's just a big, thick old book. And Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Both of these are audiobooks. If you are somebody who is like, audiobook listening isn't reading, why are you listening to a podcast? Okay. So that's what's going on. Writing, I'm editing my romance novel, initial editing, right? So it's not in an editor's hands yet. It's not with an acquisitions editor. I will more than likely have to write a book proposal for it. I will send that to my agent in the coming days, along with a few beta readers, and get some feedback for that. What I'm listening to, I have a New York Times subscription now, so I've been listening to some of their like daily headlines and op-ed pieces. I'm listening to the Broski Report podcast because she's chaotic and I love her. And then I did a lot of winter Christmas instrumentals. There's a user on YouTube called Ophelia Wild who does like Christmas lists for the fire or romanticizing winter. And I pop those puppies on and I just write and I live my life. So that's what's going on. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this chaos. I have really enjoyed this. I'm excited to keep on podcasting. Big announcement is that you get sent your stats by like these different places that the podcast, the RSS feed is. Anyhow, anyway, weirdly, top 5% podcast. Now, I will say that there are so many podcasts now that if you have like a few thousand listeners and then several hundred downloads, you're automatically in the top 5% because there are some podcasts that have been around that have, 20 dedicated listeners a month, and that's as much as they have. And so thank you all for having us charting. You're like honestly in my heart and my soul. Please rate and review. It apparently helps the podcast. And I also just like love seeing your comments and your ratings and stuff. And it just helps get my voice into more people's ear holes, which is what we want, right, for 2026. So if you would like to come to Ireland with me, I'll put the links below. And anyhow, I hope that your 2025 was transformative in every way you wanted it to transform you, and that as you look at these different past versions of yourself, that you give them a big old hug because you've got more versions of yourself to meet in 2026. Books end all the time and we keep reading. There's magic around it every corner. Anyhow, anyway, stay bookish, stay cozy. Bye.